Hello, in this presentation I'll be discussing aspects of the Doom franchise that make it so enjoyable for players. I'll be talking about the original Doom released in 1993 and Doom Eternal released in 2020. Now, Doom is a game that needs no introduction. The two main influential developers were John Carmack and John Romero. Where Carmack focused on developing the game's engine, Romero was the one responsible for the level design. Despite this, other members of the id team were also crucial in the game's success, as they were responsible for creating the iconic graphics and soundtrack. At its time, Doom was hugely influential, and the technology that it pioneered, such as binary space partitioning and an improved game engine, pushed the bounds of what was possible in the world of gaming. It then went on to inspire a whole line of other classic titles, and can safely be called the grandfather of first-person shooters. However, the topic that I will be focusing on today is the gameplay mechanic of shooting. It is at the very core of the gameplay experience and is arguably the most important mechanic of the game. So, what exactly makes it so fun? Well, a definition of a good gameplay mechanic can be found in the book Rules of Play, which states, "It is the process by which a player takes action within the design system of a game and the system responds to the action." Now, by itself this statement is pretty vague, but we can begin to understand its true meaning if we apply it to the act of shooting. Put simply, the main reason why shooting feels fun is that it is a demonstration of skill. If we get to shoot the bad guy before he shoots us, we feel like the winner. It is an act that requires specific mechanical inputs and timing that, when executed correctly, rewards us with winning the engagement. A real-life example of such an experience would be dodgeball. It is fairly similar in the sense that players have the direct ability to knock each other out of the game by being quicker and more accurate than their opponent. In the rules of play, Sal and Zimmerman outline two necessary elements for meaningful play to occur. These are discernibility, where the result of the player's actions are communicated in a perceivable way, and integration, where separate player actions have an effect on the larger context of the game. It is also important to note that even though the two kinds of meaningful play are separate, they are related. So, now that we've established the criteria necessary for a gameplay mechanic to be good, let's discuss the practical way in which Doom achieves this. The first, most apparent aspect of shooting that we can identify in Doom is the feedback provided to the player after they have shot something. So, this includes things like the animation of your gun cycling, the sound effects associated with your weapon and the enemy turning into a bloody mess. The second, most important aspect of shooting is the core of the player experience. The player feels satisfied after defeating the enemy, and this also contributes to the idea of integration, as over the course of the game, the player feels their skill and knowledge grow, allowing them to more quickly dispatch of enemies. The third aspect of shooting is directly tied to progression. This means that by eliminating enemies via shooting, the player feels fulfillment as they get to progress through the level. This is because enemies may be blocking parts of the level necessary for progression, like doors and keycards, and killing enemies ensures that if the player decides to backtrack to search through secret locations, they won't be shot in the back. In the end, all of these elements come together to create a fun and cohesive experience that is capable of both providing the player with immediate feedback and a sense of progression throughout the game. Also, notice it is very difficult for me to talk about shooting without mentioning other game mechanics. This is a key trait of successful game design and shows that the game was made by geniuses. Even 30 years later, Doom continues to be a golden example of these timeless game design principles. However, id Software would then take these core principles and proceed to create one of the best shooters of the decade. Though Doom is undoubtedly good, Doom Eternal expands the mechanic of shooting by such an extent that it creates entirely new dimensions of play. So, how does it do this? Well, first there are several differences between the two games we need to discuss. The first difference is that Doom Eternal is much more fast-paced. In order to stay alive, you need to make sure that you're constantly on the move and that you're utilizing your movement abilities like the dash and the meat hook. The second major difference is that the game is significantly more difficult. It requires more precision and tactical awareness for you to be proficient in battle. It also has much more enemies and mechanics that you need to keep in mind, all whilst being in the middle of a fight. Now, the third difference, and arguably the most important, is that the game teaches you to treat your weapons less like weapons and more like tools. In the original Doom, the weapon that you use against an enemy is mostly up to the player. As long as you can kill the thing before it kills you, you should be okay. However, in Doom Eternal, each weapon is designed to fulfill a specific purpose. The combat shotgun is a useful all-around weapon. The assault rifle picks enemies off at a distance, the plasma rifle counters enemies who use shields, and so forth for the rest of the weapons in the game. What I want you to understand is that to successfully play this game, you need to utilize every single tool given to you. This includes the whole range of your weapons, the weapon upgrades, utility, movement abilities, and general game knowledge. You cannot simply jump around with a shotgun, you need to exploit every resource available to you, especially at higher difficulties. A key addition to this game are weak spots. These are particular body parts that can be destroyed independently, and, if not, have the potential to deal great damage to the player. Along with this, the enemies feature a dynamic damage system, which means that you can see how the devastation from shooting the enemies directly affects their body. These elements help expand the depth of the gameplay experience as they force the player to prioritize certain enemies over others and figure out what tools are the best for accomplishing specific goals. Furthermore, this ties in with the concept of discernibility, where feedback about the player's actions is instantly communicated back to the player. Another thing which benefits discernibility is the sound cue which plays when the player manages to destroy a weak spot. Together, all of these additional features introduced in Doom Eternal really push the player into the fun zone and achieve a level of depth only seen in few other games. Apart from this, there are also some important features like the chainsaw and glory kills, and even though I'd love to cover them, they are slightly outside the scope of this presentation. All of these factors combined make the game feel snappy and responsive, and actively encourage the player to be as aggressive as possible, and thus have fun. In conclusion, even though both of the games are decades apart, they both masterfully utilize the resources available to them in order to create an engaging experience, and both games build upon classic principles to make sure that the actions of the player are both discernible and integrated, which is the goal of successful game design. Thank you for watching. See you whenever I see you.